We will begin, so thank you all for coming, thank you for your patience. As you're probably aware, this room is more used to the somber business of running a physics laboratory than the kind of event we're holding here today. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our Director General, Rolf Hoyer, the spokespersons of the two LHC experiments involved in today's announcement, Fabiola Gianotti for Atlas and Joe Incandela for CMS, our Research Director, Sergio Bertolucci, and Steve Myers, who is our Director for Accelerators and Technology. As you will also be aware, we're also honoured today to have four of the pioneers of the theory of electroweak symmetry breaking with us, Francois Ongler, Peter Higgs, Jerry Guralnik and Carl Hagen with us. They're in the front row here. They will be willing to take your questions during the press conference. We are also live, I believe, in Melbourne, where there are journalists following us there. For people who couldn't be with us today, journalists who couldn't be with us today but who are following us on the webcast, we are looking at Twitter. So if you want to ask a question, tweet it to iChep, #iChep2012, and we'll do our best to answer them. And with that, I will hand over to our Director General, Rolf Hoyer.
Yeah, thank you, James. I don't want to make too many words. I think you have heard the words I used at the end of the seminar. I think there could be worse days in the life of a Director General, I must say. As a short introduction, I'm really pleased with what I saw today. I'm really pleased with all the work which went into, all the dedication, all the people who are now tired and have done a remarkable and marvelous job, as I said, from the accelerator to the experiments to the grid computing. That all has contributed to this success, and I think we have a success today. We have a discovery. We have discovered a new particle, a boson, most probably a Higgs boson, but we have to find out which kind of Higgs boson this is. Does it have the properties which we expect from the standard model? If not, what are its properties and where do they point to? But at least we know now that we can soon close part of the chapter of the standard model. We have now found the last missing cornerstone of it, I think. So I'm really happy, and now we also know which direction to go for the future. But first of all, as I said, it's the beginning of a long journey to investigate all the properties of this interesting particle, because if it has a spin zero, if it is a scalar, it would be the first fundamental scalar which we ever have discovered. We have not yet ever seen a fundamental scalar. And that could give a lot of hints on other questions beyond the standard model. And I think this is very, very important. And this is why everybody is not only excited about the discovery, everybody is also excited about the prospects this discovery opens for us, for the field, and for physics in general. I think that's enough. So you can have now your questions.
Hi, Jeff Brumfield with Nature Magazine. In the press conference, or I mean in the seminar just now, you said, as a layman, I think we have it. I mean, so what would you have us write today? Have you found the Higgs or what?
Well, I think I just said it. As a layman, I would say we have it. But as a scientist, I have to say, what do we have? We have something, yeah? We have discovered a boson. And now we have to determine what kind of boson it is. That's in the scientist's language, so to speak. Does this answer your question?
Can I ask something? I'll just jump in. It's Ian Sample on the Guardian in London here. Can you tell me how far do you expect to get in finding out more about this particle before you shut down temporarily at the end of this year? What are you going to? How much further do you think you'll get in understanding what this is?
I have an expert to my left.
Okay, so it's quite early, as you know. We're just seeing this thing emerging, and it's difficult. I showed some very early measurements, but we've done some projections and some studies to see, could we tell if it was a scalar, for example, or a pseudoscalar? And we're hoping that with the additional running, We might reach the point by the end of the year with the combination of both experiments to sort of separate that sort of information, for example. We also hope to see a lot more information in the various channels and see that those balance out correctly. But to say definitively that it is a standard model Higgs would be very difficult.
Sorry for that. Yes, my question is to Professor Higgs. If you could comment as a layman, as a scientist as well, what is his impressions? Would he say we got it as a layman, and as a scientist, what would he say? Thank you.
I think it's not appropriate for me to answer any detailed questions at this stage. This is an occasion celebrating an experimental achievement, and I simply congratulate the people involved.
Sorry. Hi, this is Celeste Beaver from New Scientist. Why are the masses different, and is that important?
What the experiments observe at the present moment with the data that we have available today, the results are fully compatible within a given experiment and across experiments, because we observe, say, the maximum of the excess between mass of 125.5 and 126.5, which is really, at this stage, compatible. But of course, as Joe said, it will be very important in the next months, first to consolidate within the individual experiment the observation in the various channels. For me, the fundamental thing is to see how the excess and the signal looks in the various final stages, to see how this particle couples to all the other particles, fermions and bosons as we call them. And then at some point it will be also very interesting to combine the two experiments, our data, to of course to fully exploit the statistical power of the data sample and the data that the machine has given us. And so at that point we should be able also to give the best parameter of this signal.
So they're close enough to each other that they do complement each other?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I was just going to say that I'm sure you'll see, as we get a little further along, even with this data set, that the masses are completely consistent within uncertainties, because the uncertainties are still large.
Okay, good.
Okay, now the order is him, then you, and then you.
Do I just speak? For the other laymen out there, about 6 billion of them, what does this mean? We've heard that if it is the Higgs, it explains why we have mass. Is that your best shorthand explanation for the rest of us of what this means? And if we didn't have an explanation, and did we really not have an explanation before this of why we had mass?
I think I first have to correct, with all respect, with Peter Higgs and the other theory colleagues here, it's not what gives you the mass. That's different. That's a different mechanism. What this, if it's a Higgs boson, what this Higgs boson would tell us is that there is a certain field out here, everywhere, a certain field through which the fundamental particles, like the quarks, the bosons, get their mass. It's not that you get your mass. How can you imagine that this thing works? Well, you take a large room with journalists, okay? And they are all equally distributed in the room. This is the field which would give mass to elementary particles through the interaction of these particles with the field. Somebody who is completely unknown to the journalists can go through this field, through the journalists, with speed of light. That means that person would have zero mass. The more known you are, yeah, the more journalists are clustering around you. That means you get slower, you don't reach the velocity of light, you acquire mass. The better known you are to the journalists, the more massive you are. Okay? You saw this when you were coming in here, yeah? Peter Higgs was pretty heavy. Huh? Okay? Now that doesn't tell you anything about this boson yet. But this field, as the journalists obviously, has an interaction in between itself, and this self-interaction can produce this Higgs boson. How can I imagine that? Imagine I open the door and I whisper a rumor into the room. Then the journalists are curious, they cluster. What did he say? This cluster of journalists is the Higgs boson. That's easy. That's particle physics for laymen without a single equation.
That's very, very good, thank you. But to the extent that I am made of fundamental particles, does this not have any relevance to me?
I think it has a lot of relevance to you, because if that would not exist, I think you would not exist. I think that's in a very short layman term. You agree?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, I got agreement.
Hamish Johnson from Physics World. Everyone seems to be saying that this discovery has come rather quickly, or perhaps faster than you expected. Does this mean that that you're going to be modifying the program at the LHC in any way? Do you still plan to stop at the end of this year for a considerable amount of time and then go up to 14 TeV?
I don't know if Steve wants to say something, otherwise I can answer the question. We had a meeting yesterday, Steve, Sergio, myself, with some of our department heads. Of course, taking into account what the experiments expect and what they would like to see. So we have decided to extend this run, but only by 2.5, okay, let's call it 2.5 to 3 months. We are extending it because we will be shut down with the LHC for nearly 2 years, and therefore we really would like to give the experiments as much data as possible to get a bit more out of the discovery now which they have made. We cannot go much beyond these 3 months because we really have to do a lot of maintenance now.